This is The Inquiry. I'm Gregory Harms. Welcome to another episode. This episode will be on existentialism. Existentialism. Big word. But first, I think this show... Is anyone watching the show Étoile?
Did you sleep on my couch last night?
I just had sex with Gail on it. Why else would you have us do it?
In the place that you sleep?
Gail lives in Queens. No thanks.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly, Étoile. It's about, it's a new series, a newish series about two ballet companies that are sort of in competition, but they coordinate efforts to rejuvenate interest in ballet. It is really funny. It's really charming. It's nicely done. And I think some of the fellas might be like, I'm not watching a ballet show. It's not a ballet show. It just happens to have ballet in it. And ballet is really nice to watch, so just watch it. It's kind of like Barbie. It's like, I'm not watching a Barbie. I was part of that group. I was like, I'm not watching a Barbie movie. But then I watched the Barbie movie and I was pleasantly surprised. You can read my review of it on GregoryHarms.com. So watch Étoile. It's really good. There's a line in a movie that's stuck in my head recently. Not like songs that get stuck in my head. This is stuck in my head in a good way. There's a line from Alice in Wonderland when Alice is in the flower bed and one of the flowers says, have you ever seen an Alice with a blossom like that? And then the older flower says, I think she's older flower, she says, come to think of it, have you ever seen an Alice?
Ever see an Alice with a blossom like that?
Come to think of it, did you ever see an Alice?
Yes.
I just think that's wonderful. It just cracks me up. And I like the character Bud. I think it's her name, Bud. She says, I think she's pretty.
I think she's pretty.
Quiet, Bud.
And when I see that clip by Bud, that little moment that you see Bud, and then Bud gets shushed. The older flower's like, quiet, Bud. It gets shushed. When I watch that, when I think of that, I think of Hillary Clinton. Because Hillary Clinton it was in a debate years ago. I can't remember when. Hillary Clinton started talking about universal health care, and the audience in the auditorium just like started clapping and cheering, and she's like, I know it's got political support, and I know. And she basically told the audience to shut up. And I'm like, God, we're all Bud. We're all kind of like Bud. There's stuff we want from government, and the government just two middle fingers and put a sock in it. Put a sock in it. Yeah, we're all Bud.
I think she's pretty.
I have to frequently get help getting dressed, and I was putting on my sport coat and my not black t-shirt, and my jacket was all discombobulated, and my dad's wife, she said, you look like Kiss, and I thought that was really funny. You look like Kiss, because my shoulders were like, poking up, and she said, you look like Kiss. I thought that was really funny. All right, existentialism. I was watching a podcast the other day about philosophy, and this woman runs a podcast, and she's done over 100 episodes, and she seems like a really likable person, and she seems to know what she's talking about. So she did a podcast episode on the very thing that we're going to talk about today, and I thought her presentation of the text of the lecture by Sartre was was pretty good. I mean, it was okay. It was solid. But she kept mispronouncing the name Sartre. She kept calling him Sartre, which just kind of set me on edge. And there are some edits in the episodes, like she puts text and images and stuff, but they're not great. They're not. She tries to be funny, and they're not funny. And the text that she posts in these little images, like squares of text, they're not particularly helpful. And I also noticed behind her that there are books. Now, there are books behind me, but there happen to be books behind me. But I got the feeling she made sure her camera included her and her books. I can't prove that, but just call it a hunch. Yeah, I'm like, I think those books are there on purpose to make her look smart. These books aren't here to make me look smart. These just happen to be behind my desk, and my tripod and my camera are on my desk. And that's what happens to be behind me. If they were pointing in another direction, you'd see something else. You'd see a rather large Warhol print of a cow. I would reach up and get it, but it's not worth falling on the floor, you know. I've also discovered bubbly, like Michael Bublé does the commercials. It's pretty good. 6 different flavors, 18 packs. It's cheap. It's better than that LaCroix or La Croix. But we say LaCroix here in America. We speak American. We say LaCroix. I don't know why that had to be pointed out, but it just got pointed out. Okay, existentialism. Existentialism. Students frequently have a hard time with that word, existentialism. What is it, and what is it? Well, that's a good question, because I don't really know how to answer that question. It's a mixed bag. A lot of thinkers get thrown in that bag, or put under that umbrella, or whatever metaphor you want to use. And I think the best place to start is Walter Kaufman's book. I got it over here on my desk. Existentialism from Dostoevsky to Sartre. Okay, well, that title tells you a lot. It tells you that a lot of thinkers get put in that, under that umbrella. And the first page of Walter Kaufman was basically founded English Nietzsche studies. He was, for decades, the 800-pound gorilla Nietzsche scholar, and he's held in less high esteem today by some Nietzsche scholars. I think his scholarship is quite good, and his translations are held in high esteem by just about everybody. His translations of Nietzsche are first rate, and they're held in very, very high esteem by Nietzsche scholars of just about every stripe. So that's Walter Kaufman. So he did most of his path-breaking work in the 50s, right after World War II, when there really wasn't much left of Nietzsche. We should do a Nietzsche episode. That'd be fun. So on the first page of the introduction to that book, he says some rather funny things. And he says that defining existentialism is like pointless, because all these thinkers get put under this umbrella, and a lot of those thinkers don't want to be under that umbrella, and they don't want to be in that group, and they don't want to be associated with one another, and they don't want to be called existentialists. And then you get people thrown in there like Dostoevsky, who was a Russian novelist, but probably one of the greatest novelists ever, and he wouldn't even know what existentialism was. And Nietzsche gets thrown in that group, and he wouldn't know what existentialism was, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be thrilled with the label existentialist. He just kind of, Dostoevsky and Nietzsche just kind of open the doors, and kind of, there are some themes in there that you could say are roughly existentialist. And then you get a list of other thinkers. You get Kierkegaard, you can put him in there. Karl Jaspers, Martin Heidegger, Jean-Paul Sartre, of course, Camus. These thinkers all get, and they're all in Kaufman's book and others. This is a mixed bag. And Heidegger wanted nothing to do with Sartre. And Sartre was kind of flag-waving existentialist. But the rest of those guys, no, they're not. And they're very different from one another. And they prioritize things very differently. And their approach is very different. And the concepts they deal with are very different. And their backgrounds are very different. So finding continuity from Dostoevsky to Camus is like, forget it, I got a spot on my glasses. Enjoy the soothing music. Okay, we're back. So I want to talk about a very specific work in the world of existentialism, and that is the lecture that Sartre gave at the Club Maintenant in autumn of 1945, right after World War II. He gave this talk, and it was transcribed, and what we have is word for word what he said that day. And of course, I'm reading I'm reading an English translation of the French. So I want to talk about that essay, because we talk about that essay, or that lecture rather, in my ethics classes, and the students get a lot out of it. There's a lot there to sink your teeth into. So we'll just go. You can break down the lecture into 5 chief parts. Okay? 5 main parts. Existence precedes essence. Freedom. Responsibility. Anguish. And bad faith. Those are our 5. So we'll just take each one in turn and discuss what Sartre means by those points. And I think this is a very short read. It's a very short read, and yeah, I think readers can get a lot out of it. So hopefully this will provide a useful primer on the subject. So, first main point: existence precedes essence. Okay, what does Sartre mean by existence precedes essence? For Sartre, we start as things. The opposite would be like a table. Philosophers are always talking about tables, so I guess we'll talk about a table. Plus there's one right in front of me. The table starts as an idea. Starts as a concept. You don't just start making a table. You gotta know how big it's gonna be. You gotta know what kind of table it is. Or going to be. You have to know what it's going to be made out of, and how big the size and dimensions, and blah blah blah, all that stuff. Okay, so there's got to be a kind of a blueprint, if you will, in place before you start putting the table together, or a house, or it could be any human-made object. So you could say that the table, or the house, or whatever piece of furniture, starts as an idea, as an essence, and then becomes a thing, becomes a table. For humans, it's the opposite, Sartre says. For humans, We start as things. You're quote unquote thrown into the world. And then through your choices, you establish your essence. You define yourself. You you define who you are. And not only that, but you contribute to the definition of what it means to be a human being. So you're developing your own essence as well as contributing to humanity's essence. So there's a lot riding on every decision, every choice you make. And for Sartre, we generate value through choice. So we start as things and we become ideas. Existence precedes essence. We start as existence, and we become essence. We define ourselves through choice. That's what he means by existence precedes essence. Next, Sartre talks about freedom. Freedom is, Sartre says quite intensely, humanity is condemned to freedom. Our freedom is radical. Our freedom is absolute. We could do whatever we want. We can define ourselves however we want. We can contribute to humanity's essence in whatever fashion we'd like. Our freedom is radical and absolute. Because you start as existence and you define yourself over the course of your life. So, yeah, we are condemned to freedom. We are absolute and radical freedom. We are radically free because we start as nothing, and we start as a blank slate, if you will, tabula rasa in the Latin. Though he doesn't use that term, tabula rasa. That's how we start life. That's how we live our lives. We live our lives as free beings, and you do what you want, and really you do what you want anyway. There's a misconception, and we talked about this in a previous episode, that we get our morality from religion or our parents or whatever. Probably not. Chances are we write our morality onto our religions. And you don't really get your morality from your parents. It's by a lot. And Sartre doesn't go into this, but you basically get your morality from we talked about this in a previous episode. We get from the moral conscience. Was that episode 11? I think it's episode 11, yeah. Yeah, we it's a biological phenomenon. It's born into you, like your bones, like your kidneys. It's just part of the design. And so you write your morality onto your religion, quite likely, not the other way around. But I won't go into that because I already did. Sartre certainly doesn't go into that. He's just saying we are condemned to freedom. We start as things. The sky it's wide open. You could define yourself any way you'd like, and you're going to define yourself. That's an important detail here. You don't have a choice. You're condemned to doing so. You're condemned to defining yourself, and you're going to define yourself, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sartre says later in the lecture, over the course of your life, you paint your own self-portrait, warts and all, as they say. I think he's right. Yeah, you paint your own self-portrait. It's not the portrait that you want to paint. It's what you actually do, and how people actually, it's the decisions that you actually make. It's not the highly photoshopped, somewhat fictional sense of our own personal histories. Humans are very good at creating their own truth and authoring their own personal histories. We all have our own personal histories that exist in our heads. You know, we have a sense of ourselves. All right, we have a sense of ourselves that exists in our minds. You know, this didn't happen. I'm going to put this in the background. I'm going to bring this forward. Going to make this. We're going to romanticize this. We're going to, you know, we kind of custom tailor our own personal histories to suit our own personal needs. And we all do this, just to varying degrees. Some people are pathological about it. Some people just sort of do it on the fly, just sort of naturally. But I think all human beings do this. They create their own truth, and they custom tailor their own personal histories. And you'll hear people do it, like they romanticize their history, and like, that's not what other people saw, you know. Let me pull up. Enjoy the soothing music. Okay, I wanted to pull up this quote by Adam Smith. It comes to mind. Adam Smith says, "If we saw ourselves in the light in which others see us, or in which they would see us if they knew all, a reformation would generally be unavoidable." I think that is spot on. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm like, what did other people see? Is you're trying to convince everyone in the room that you were really cool, or, you know, there was a wild and crazy night. What did other people see? And if we saw ourselves the way other people see us, I think I almost said Nietzsche. I think Adam Smith's wording here is correct. A reformation would generally be unavoidable. You'd make changes because you'd realize, oh my God, that's how people see me. I mean, human beings are bad at. We're not even, you know, if you hear yourself recorded, like your voice recorded, for the first time, you're horrified. You're like, oh my God, I don't sound like that. Or if you see video footage of you walking, you're like, I don't walk like that. Yeah, you do. You're the only one who cares. And human beings are bad at looking at themselves in the mirror. I know that sounds crazy, but you don't look at your face in the mirror the way you look at my face. You look at my face like, there it is, you know, there's some guy on YouTube. He's bald and got glasses, and, you know, he's got a smashing jacket on. He does not look like Kiss anymore. And you just look at. But when you look at your face in the mirror, you interrogate it. You look at the details. You're like, I don't like that. I'd change that. You know, that I didn't shave very well. No, nobody else cares. You're the only one who cares. Human beings are really bad at looking at themselves. And we're bad at looking, and these are just superficial concerns. The sound of your voice, how you walk, how you look in the mirror. These are superficial considerations. How about big picture issues, like, you know, how you act, your politics, how you live in the world, the decisions you make, you know, yeah. But we have our default setting. The Sartre does not go into this, but our default setting is that we're you know, we spend a lot of our time assuming I'm a good person. Well, Sartre does kind of hint at that. Our default setting is, you know, I'm a good person, and this is a part of that personal, you know, custom tailored fictional view of ourselves that I find very interesting. Endlessly fascinating, and you see it all over human behavior. I think Adam Smith just hits it right on the head with that one. The Russian writer Chekhov, he gets credit for saying something very similar, but I think Adam Smith said it better. He said it way before Chekhov did. Take that, Chekhov. Okay, so that's freedom. What's next? Responsibility. Responsibility. Because we are radically free, because we are absolutely and totally free, we are responsible. Now, this is not responsibility as in, wait, I'm going to take a sip. Lime. This is not responsibility as in you have a responsibility to be a good citizen, or you have a responsibility to look after your little sister or whatever. This is responsibility as in your signature is on your decisions. You are liable. You are the author of your decisions. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about responsibility as you're being liability, as being the author of your decisions. Your fingerprints are on your decisions and your choices. You bear responsibility. It's not responsibility as in duty, right? That's different. This responsibility is in you own it, whether you choose to or not. You own your choices and your decisions. So this is responsibility because that freedom is absolute, and freedom and responsibility accrue proportionately. There's a directly proportional relationship between how free someone is and how responsible they are. For example, the people in North Korea, one could argue that they don't bear a tremendous amount of responsibility for the state of their country. They're secret police. It's a totalitarian state. It's brutal. They bear limited responsibility. Yes, they could rise up, but that's an easy thing to say from the comfort of your living room. The North Koreans can point to extenuating circumstances for the state of their country. What excuses do we have? We elected the clowns on Capitol Hill. If we don't have universal health care and we don't have the things we want, well, whose fault is that? I heard a lot of belly aching about, oh my God, the options are Trump and Biden. Oh my God, like Trump and Biden fell from the sky. No, we chose Trump and Biden, and that's why we had those two as president, as candidates for a time. That's our fault. Biden is our fault. Trump is our fault. There are good politicians in Washington. There are good people on Capitol Hill. Not many of them, but there are good people on Capitol Hill, and they don't get support in this country. Why is Elizabeth Warren not in the White House? I've been saying that for years. Well, that's us. Pete Buttigieg, a number of members of the Progressive Caucus in Congress. Why are they not getting support? Why are they not in the White House? Why is Elizabeth Warren not in the White House? She represents her views track with public opinion. She's what we actually want, and yet we get Joe Biden. The mind reels. Not a big fan of Joe Biden. You couldn't tell. If all goes well, and I doubt it will, he'll die in prison where he belongs. Because he's a war criminal, and that's where war criminals belong. They belong in prison, and they should die there. And that applies to Joe Biden. Do a whole episode just on Joe Biden. That'd be interesting. You'll hear that again. So yeah, we're responsible because we're absolutely free. We're free, and therefore we have total responsibility because we have total freedom, because we start as things, and we generate value and create our essence through choice. What's the next one? Responsibility, anguish. Why does Sartre talk about anguish? Well, when you fully embrace and realize the universality of your decision making and the fact that you're contributing to the essence of humanity in addition to your own essence, it's going to freak you out a little bit. And Sartre says there's really nothing you can do about this. It's just part of the human condition. If you choose to embrace that freedom and that responsibility, then it's going to produce anguish. It's going to freak you out because you realize how much is riding on your decision making. That's it. That's the simplest I can put that. You realize the universal implications of your decision, of your choices and your decision making, and it produces anguish. It's going to freak you out. Nothing you can do about it. Part of the human condition. This leads us to bad faith. Bad faith, that's a big one for Sartre, and it's a big one for me, really. I'm quite fascinated with bad faith. So, what's bad faith? In French, mauvaise foi. What does he mean by that? He means that some people will try to avoid or evade the freedom, the responsibility, and the anguish. Points 2, 3, and 4. They try to evade that. They try to pretend they're not free. They pretend they're not responsible, and they avoid the anguish that comes with the freedom and the responsibility. And they engage in a kind of tactical behavior. They avoid that freedom, and so they engage in bad faith. They reify themselves. Big word, new word, reify. R-E-I-F-Y. Reification. They engage in reification. What does that mean, to reify oneself? To reify oneself is to essentially become a thing. Because tables and rocks and books and globes, I'm looking at my globe again, don't have feelings, don't disappoint, don't have freedom, don't have responsibility, don't have anything. They're just things. And so I want to be like a thing. So what humans will do commonly, especially in this culture, is they will adopt personae. They will adopt. They'll become a character, right? So 2 archetypes that I've homed in on over the years. I borrow one from a friend of mine who uses the term fabulous. The fabulous woman and the great man. Now, what does that mean? These are mine. These are not Sartre's. These are mine. These are my archetypes that I've like I said, I've kind of zeroed in on, and I see them all over the place. The fabulous woman. Let's start with her. Now, this you can get. These are gender-specific labels, yes, and there can be crossover. You can get one set of characteristics in the other gender. You can get like the fabulous man and the great woman. You can get that, but typically these things are run according to the genders. I see more fabulous women, far more, then I see fabulous men, and I see and I see great men far more frequently than I see great women. But you can get some gender crossover with these archetypes. Let's start with the fabulous woman. What's she all about? The fabulous woman is very self-promotional. She doesn't have a care in the world. She kind of acts like a celebrity. You know, very, very, very self-promotional. Very la-di-da, not a care in the world. You know, just kind of sweeps into the room, draws a lot of attention to herself. She's nauseating. She's insufferable.
I think she's pretty.
And she acts like she doesn't doesn't have a care, you know, all this stuff. And she's always about 3/8 of an inch away from a nervous breakdown, because I think she's wound up rather tight on the inside. On the outside, her act is to be very carefree, you know, very carefree person. But on the inside, she's a mess, and she's wound up as tight as a drum. And I present these archetypes to my students, and I asked years ago, have you met her? Have you met the fabulous woman? And I had a guy at a school raise his hand, and I said, yeah. I called on him, and he said, you've got my stepmom in a box. And I just died. I thought that was so funny. The rest of the students enjoyed that remark as well. That was fantastic. And then the great man. I mean, you can see where this is going. The great man is a blowhard. The great man surveys the valley below. The great man is detached. There are the world's problems, and then there's him. And there's no connection between the world and him. He is on high. He resides at the, you know, he is the measure of all that is excellent. His view of himself. He's the smartest guy in the room, of course. He's tough. He's superlative. He's in all departments. He's superlative, and it's exhausting. He is a coward, and he is weak, and he too is a mess. He's a wreck, but on the surface, his act is that of someone who's resilient and tough and smart and doesn't really feel anything. You know, the world is what it is, and it's got nothing to do with him. And yeah, he's detached. Well, why is he detached? Because he can't bear the feeling of responsibility. He can't bear connection to the world. He can't bear it. It just, he's terrified of it. The poor thing. I mean, he's exhausting to be around, but you gotta feel sorry for him a little bit. His image of himself is completely inappropriate to the facts. And that's, yeah, he's play acting. He's play acting. He's trying to, you know, he's trying to keep the world at a distance because it will cause him pain. It's like he's got no skin. It's like the fabulous woman, you know. She's kind of detached too because she doesn't want to engage with the world. She does not have unguarded moments. Everything's calculated. Frequently, it's hard to say. Frequently, I would say these two are, I have to think about it. But right now in this moment, I would say both of them tend to be unregenerate bigots. I got to think about that some more. But right now, I would say yes. That's not hard to find. Bigotry and racism are not far away with this group, with these personality types. It's there, and you know, the bad faith is, if you called out the fabulous woman and said, you're kind of a 90-mile-an-hour bigot, she'd be like, how dare you? How dare you? Because she's got this house. They both have this house of cards in their head, and they're very protective. And the gentlest breeze could bring that house of cards tumbling down. And yeah, if you call her out, or if you present either one with, the facts, they are they're very uncomfortable. It's like they don't have skin. So that's bad faith. That's mauvaise foi. It's play acting. It's reification. It's avoiding freedom, responsibility, and anguish, or the anguish that comes with freedom and responsibility. So those are the 5 main sections in Sartre's lecture. I don't know. Maybe you want to get into existentialism. Maybe you want to. I occasionally have a student like, I'm an existentialist. I think I said that in 1991, so I understand where that's coming from. It's easy to kind of be charmed by this. I don't. Can we call it a school of thought? No, I don't think so. I think it's just a set of writers that sort of kind of, you can find themes that crop up in their writings, and okay, and this, I don't know. Dostoevsky and Nietzsche and Kierkegaard. Heidegger and Sartre. I don't know. Nietzsche was very influential on Sartre and Sartre and Heidegger. He very much influenced those two thinkers, and Nietzsche, I think, influenced a lot of what happened intellectually in France in the post-war period, going into the 60s and the 70s, and even into the 80s. I think Nietzsche played a pretty big role with that, influenced a whole generation or two of thinkers. But this existentialism, Kaufman says something rather funny in that first page of his introduction. And he says, an argument can be made that we should just get rid of the term altogether. I think that's rather funny. And it's probably true. Because nailing down if you want to call the work of Sartre existentialism, then I guess that's fine. But going wide, I don't think there's much there to call existentialism. And Kaufman makes this really clear in his introduction. But he includes a whole list of thinkers in his book, in his collection of writings, which I highly recommend. Like I said, if you want to get into existentialism, I would seek out Walter Kaufman's book first. And I'd get a copy of that, because that'll put you in the right spot. And he's got writings by a whole list of thinkers, including the ones I've mentioned, and Nietzsche. And I think it's a really good collection. And he was a first-rate scholar, no doubt about it. I hope this helps. Next episode, Iran. That's been in the news. So we're going to talk about Iran. We're going to talk about the country. We're going to talk about its history a little bit. We're going to talk about why it's in the news. We're going to talk about all the talk about speculation about the nuclear program. We're going to talk about uranium enrichment. We're going to talk about all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. If fun's the right word. So stay tuned for Iran in the next episode of The Inquiry.
I think he's pretty.